Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Lexa Peterson, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Warrant Officer Class 2 Blair Farban. We warmly welcome the family of Corporal Thomas Valentine Huxley, whose story will be told shortly. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem.
Australians, oh, let us rejoice, for we are one and free. We've golden soil and wealth for toil, our home is got by sea. Our land abounds in nature's gifts of beauty, rich and rare. In history's page, let every stage advance Australia fair. In joyful strains, then let us sing, advance Australia fair.
If able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they have done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed at the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Good afternoon. Today we remember and pay tribute to Corporal Thomas Valentine Huxley. Born on the 14th of February 1914 in Scone, New South Wales, Thomas Huxley was the second son of Richard and Irene Huxley. He had 6 brothers, Jack, William, Vic, Richard, Bert and Frank, and 1 sister, Beryl. The family lived in Scone, Armidale and the Central Coast around Wyong and the Entrance. By 1921, they had settled in Willoughby on Sydney's North Shore. In the early 1930s, Tom's father, Richard, went to New Guinea to operate a gold mine in Bulolo. In Sydney, Tom qualified as a dredge engineer before joining his father in New Guinea. By now, war had broken out, and Tom was keen to return home and join up. He enlisted the day he arrived in Sydney, the 31st of July, 1940. A few weeks later, he was assigned to the 2nd 3rd Pioneer Battalion. The unit trained at Glenfield and spent some of its leisure time playing sports. Tom was an accomplished all-round cricketer and an asset to his battalion's team. In October, the battalion was sent to Canberra, receiving a warm welcome from the locals. Shortly after, Tom returned to Sydney, where he married Florence Jean Hesford in Marrickville on the 11th of October 1940. In early March 1941, the 2nd 3rd Pioneers left Cowra and began a long train journey to Darwin. There they built a camp in Winnelly, earmarked to join the 8th Division. Its place was taken by another unit, so it returned to Sydney in October. Embarking on the Queen Mary on the 1st of November 1941, the men crossed the Indian Ocean. Over the next few months, they were based in Palestine before moving into Syria in late January 1942. Having been promoted to acting corporal, Tom Huxley was in charge of constructing defensive positions in the mountains, anticipating a German advance from the north. Towards the end of May, they moved south to Lebanon and joined the main body of the 9th Australian Division. In early June, Tom had 7 days leave at the Special Leisure Camp in Beirut, spending time on the beach, swimming, sunbathing, and enjoying food, beer, pictures and shows. Not long after returning, there was talk amongst the men about being sent to the Western Desert in Egypt to help stop a major enemy advance. Before their departure to the front, Tom wrote in his diary, "This will be my last entry for quite a while, as all our diaries, cameras, kit bags, etc. are going to base and we are all packed up, ready to move. So it looks like we are to take part in the Battle of Egypt. For 2 years we have waited for this moment, so here's hoping we come through with flying colours." The Australians played an important part in holding the line against German and Italian forces at El Alamein. And over the next few months, Allied forces built up their strength and ready to strike back. The 2nd 3rd Pioneers were kept in reserve and saw little action during the summer. Rather, the men trained in the hot and dusty desert, focusing on a combination of infantry tactics and handling mines. The front at El Alamein was covered with minefields. Trained for the dual role of infantry and combat engineers, the Pioneers would be a real asset in the field. The Allied counterattack began on the night of 23rd of October 1942. But after a week of gruelling battle, there was still no breakthrough. The Australians were ordered to keep up the pressure and continue attacking, while casualties mounted steadily. With the infantry battalions now under strength, the Pioneers were called in to help. For the first time, they would be going into battle, and they would fight as infantry. By sunrise on the 31st of October 1942, the 2nd 3rd Pioneers were isolated, dangerously exposed, and almost surrounded by German troops. Suffering heavy casualties, the men were called upon to surrender. Their response was clear: "If you want us, come and get us." The fighting raged on throughout the blistering heat of the day, the area blanketed in dust and smoke. As German panzers appeared late in the afternoon, British tanks arrived on the scene. The Pioneers hugged the ground as a tank battle exploded all around them. The enemy was driven off and the Australians held the ground, but the cost was high. The 2nd, 3rd Pioneers suffered 118 casualties that day. Among them was Tom Huxley. Badly wounded in the abdomen and buttocks, he was evacuated to the 10th British Casualty Clearing Station behind the front. He held on for a week, but died of his wounds on the 7th of November 1942. Tom Huxley was buried in El Alamein, Commonwealth War Cemetery. He was 28 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour to my left, amongst almost 40,000 Australians who died while serving in the Second World War. His photograph is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Corporal Thomas Valentine Huxley, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the Memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening.